Hello, and welcome to the Men's Humans Rights Discord server weekly talk. We do these weekly talks every week about various men's issues and issues pertaining to the men's rights movement. But this week, we're talking about something called Big Tent Feminism. Now, if you check the text chat channel, you can see I've just posted a link from the New York Times. After Dobbs, does Big Tent feminism exist? As you follow these chats, keep in mind the text chat is live, and some people consider it to be just as much the main event, if not more so, than the voice chat. But does Big Tent feminism exist? I know what you're probably thinking. What on earth is Big Tent feminism? And I have to be honest, the more I read this article, the less I understand what it is. It's like reading words that form sentences that I can understand, but when I finish reading the article, I'm left completely clueless as to what they're actually trying to get at. Are they trying to unify all feminism under one tent? Does that mean they're trying to codify every belief that feminism has, and they're trying to bring together TERFs and serfs and everyone in between under one giant umbrella? Does that mean that they're going to allow feminists with different opinions to coexist, or does that mean they're going to pick one standing, that one position that all feminists have to have? It's really not clear, and it's even more confusing when you Google Big Tent feminism and you read different articles that all seem to say different things. Now, to me, this is explainable by the fact that feminist theory is almost entirely fictitious and made up and invented and not really based on anything real. And what I think this is feminism grasping to remain relevant as they are running out of lies they can conceivably fool people into believing. And I know that may sound harsh, and I know that doesn't really sound like we're trying to reach out and meet feminists in the middle. But it's difficult for MRAs to kind of keep our patience with feminists when we are constantly attacked, constantly slandered, constantly harassed, constantly criticized. And I remember the death threats that Cassie J faced when she was trying to show the Red Pill documentary. I recall how Earl Silverman was bullied until he committed suicide just for trying to help male victims of domestic violence. I remember the death threats and the bomb scares that feminists would call and still regularly call on any kind of men's rights event. And I have to admit, my patience sometimes wears thin. So when feminists are trying to promote this idea called big tent feminism and asking should it exist, I think they should at least be able to define it first and explain what is it, why is it necessary, what would it mean, what does it not mean. So Katrina, aka Darkisha, was the one who brought this topic up. I know she has much to say about it. She is currently at a university where she's experiencing a very feminist environment. So, Darkisha, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Thanks. So the interesting thing is I found this article that you posted, and then I'll be honest, I don't have access to New York Times, so I went to another article which had a video or podcast attached to it, 40-minute podcast about the issue of big tent feminism. And, and the podcast brought about 3 to 4 different generations worth of feminists, and they were all sort of talking about how they got into the movement, as well as how they wrote, well, at least 2 of them were people who'd written articles that became sort of famous later on, one of them being the writer of the article that
Dark, your
we now
mic is
have.
going in and out, and we can't really hear what you're saying. At least I can't. Can anyone else?
Okay, give me a sec. Let me see if this makes it better. Does this work?
You're still a bit garbled there, but just keep going and let's see.
Okay. Sorry. Uh, mic issues. You gotta love tech. So, interesting things with this article is big intent feminism. Every article I've seen is about a different issue. The understanding so far is big intent feminism was an idea created because they're coming to an issue within the feminist movement where they don't know what the future of feminism is because of the fact that the feminist movement has become so fractured. You have TERFs, you have traditional feminists, you have anti-abortion feminists, you have pro-abortion feminists, you have liberal feminists, conservative feminists. You have so many different groups of feminism. Big Tent was created as like the next step, which is bringing feminism back together as one group and accepting all women and all allies. And it's been something that's circling the news because it's very controversial because of the fact that feminism has been so fractured. I'm going to post some articles here just to give an idea as to how fractured these different things are. So that's the original article I found after the one from the New York Times. This one specifically talks about the argument going on about whether to accept sex workers because of the fact that some people argue sex workers are the greatest ally to feminism because they are so into their sexualities, and others saying that if they accept sex workers, they're basically building on the exploitation of women by men. If you go to another article, this one was written by the Daily News. This article is all about whether to accept pro abortion or anti abortion members of feminism. And so each of these articles are about the same supposed big tent that everyone is under in feminism, and yet every single one of these articles is talking about should we accept this group for almost every issue you can name.
Because it's just nothing. It's just nothingness. It's just these articles are just word salads. They're just throwing out lingo and making up ideology and making up terminology as they go along. And this is what feminism has essentially done from the very beginning. And the debate I had with that slimy TikToker about the definition of patriarchy, he basically did exactly the same thing. If you saw the video, he scrolled down dozens of different feminists who talk about patriarchy as proof that patriarchy is true. No, it's the other way around. It's proof that it's even more vague and abstract. You can't define it. Or if you can, there's 20 different definitions and they don't all agree. And what irritates me is that MRAs, we almost never do this. We're very specific in the things that we claim, and we're very specific in our stances. We are against unequal pension ages. These are what those ages are. These are the countries in which this happens. These are the stats on the education gap. This is why we think it's bad. We don't just make up these terms, and feminists do, and they always get away with it. No one ever calls it out.
I think we all know what this is going to do. This is going to create a new branch of feminism called Big Tent Feminism, and they are going to maybe compile a couple of different groups which do all agree, and then it's going to create its own brand of feminism that the other branches are going to disagree with, and it's just more polarization. Honestly,
it's interesting to notice the sense and the fraction within feminism that doesn't really exist much in the men's rights movement. And people will say, well, wait a minute, the manosphere is very much fractured. But to that, I would say the red pill movement and the men's rights movement are not the same thing. And that's something that a lot of people don't seem to understand. Within the men's rights movement itself, the only real difference is whether left-wing or right-wing politics is the best way forward. And even in that division, there's a general consensus that neither one is really all that satisfactory. and neither left wing nor right wing really does a whole lot to help men's rights at the end of the day. So it's very interesting to me that you don't see the same division within the men's rights movement as you do with feminism. If one movement was just full of grifters and reactionaries, wouldn't they not really agree on anything? But it's the other way around. The movement that feminists claim is just this reactionary, hostile, sexist movement that's just secretly about hating women. Wouldn't we constantly be fighting amongst ourselves? And yet we don't. It's completely the other way around.
I mean,
Another
one
thing
of
is
the
too. Sorry, Ma, go ahead.
I was just going to say the only other thing we really disagree about is how much we dislike feminism, whether it's a little bit or an awful lot.
Well, it's not even, and even to that point, it's to what extent should we try and offer an olive branch and try and meet in the middle? And to what extent should we look at what feminist groups are actually doing and how they're completely hostile to men almost every single time? And to me, it's not even, to me, it's about looking at the two feminists. There is the toxic feminist who is a professional on social media or these political groups, these organizations, versus the average person on the street who calls himself a feminist because they think it means equality. The second person, when they hear us say that we're anti-feminist, they think we're attacking equality. And I think what we need to do a better job of doing is communicating that no, we're not against the dictionary definition of feminism. The dictionary definition sounds great. The problem is the specific actions of specific feminists. We are looking at what they are actually saying and doing, not what they're saying that they're doing, what they're saying and actually what they are doing. And that's the difference.
I think I'd also like to go back to like Blue's point about like sort of with the thing with patriarchy and the fact that it's so like mixed up is their general definitions of everything are also usually mixed up. I'm gonna give a personal example that actually happened the other night. There's a girl I used to go to school with many, many years ago. And we still follow each other on Snapchat, and her post said, "I hate the entire male species." And me being the person I am was not gonna let that slide. So I sent her a message. I was very honest. I did not use curse words. I never do. I didn't say anything mean. I said, "Hey, look, I'm sorry for whatever happened to you. You know, your experience maybe towards that person is validated, but saying that kind of line is actually very toxic and has a lot of negative repercussions. Also, these men that, because then she made a post after saying that, literally taking pictures of all the guys who sent her messages for getting mad because they got mad at her and they said, "Dude, that's horrible to say." And she said they were trash for being mad at her for saying that. I point out to her that no, they have the right to be mad. Your experience may be valid, but it's not valid to say that line because of your experience. It's valid for you to be mad at the person or persons involved in your experience, but not to the entire male species. She then replied that she finds it interesting I use the not all men argument and says that's valid for her to say it because it's enough men to be a problem. To which then and that she accepts the fact that I apologize for quote unquote invalidating her experience. I started the whole line with saying her experience was valid. Apparently, she has a very different
She's just
definition of what invalidation is.
She's doing what feminists she's doing
do.
what feminists do. She's just repeating learned phrases. There's no critical thinking behind it at all. They just learn phrases and buzzwords and then it's repeat them without any critical thinking behind it, which is why their arguments are always easy to demolish. And you'll notice that guy on TikTok hasn't answered back to my latest video. He just moves on to the next talking point because that's all they do.
And so
No,
it's
it's
interesting because we got a thing about validation.
mm, it has a lot to do with how their theory is set up. Their theory is mutually contradictory, and I'm surprised Blue didn't mention this when he was talking about the other stuff. But feminist theory is it's all stuff like gender is a social construct, but like also men are evil, but also there is no consistency at all in it, and it honestly is basically write an essay which furthers us towards our point, because really they self-describe as the academic wing of an activist movement. So we have actual feminist papers admitting that, you can see them on our citation list, admitting that they throw men under the bus in order to prop up women. They've been doing this for decades. It's well known. They say it in coded language, but it's very, very clear when you read it that that's what they mean. And it's the only thing they could possibly mean. And that just makes it clear that, like, just how different our two movements are. The MRA movement acknowledges predatory men. It acknowledges men who domestically abuse, rape, take advantage of women and other men, which is like a very critical thing to remember, and other men. But we also acknowledge something that feminism doesn't, which is predatory women who abuse, rape, molest, and so on, boys and men. And that is really the thing we come to blows over. That's the thing that Erin Pizzey came to blows over. That's the thing that's got her sent out of the country on a wave of death threats. So yeah, we are very different, and feminism's own problem is that it's also very different from itself internally. The TERFs hate the non-TERFs. They think that they're going to get women killed. The non-TERFs think that the TERFs are going to get women killed. The anti-abortion feminists are very extreme. I haven't met many of the pro-life feminists, but I don't know what they're like. But then you have all the other flavors. There's a couple of flavors which aren't too bad. Like from what I remember, equality feminists are about as close to the definitions you can get. Like your Christine Hoff Sommers, I think, is an equality feminist, or she might be some other word that I'm not remembering. But she's much closer to the what they tell us the definition of feminism is, although the definition of feminism is actually moving towards equity rather than them saying equality. It was always about equity, but now they're using that word instead of equality because they're shifting their entire conversation, basically their entire mode of speaking. It's very interesting. They all shifts all at once, like it just started happening one day, and it's just like everyone got the memo in the entire movement, which is very strange considering how broken up they are. Anyone have anything to say about that, or has my mic stopped working?
No, sorry, I was actually reading a post on Reddit, on the subreddit actually, about a lot of false flag attacks trying to get the sub removed. But it's true that feminist theory is and feminist practice is constantly contradictory. especially when it comes to something like patriarchy, because on one hand they say they want to end the harmful gender stereotypes, but then they say things like, well, the wheel of domestic violence should recognize that men are perpetrators and women are victims. Wait a minute, I thought you just said you wanted to end the harmful stereotypes. It's just and it's so easy to see through. It's frustrating that people can't.
Yeah, it is incredibly frustrating, especially when they use their theory as a bludgeon. Like, I've had multiple conversations with like people who are into the idea of male privilege, and if you look at their research, they just absolutely stone cold refuse to ask if there are any downsides, or to ask women if there are any upsides to being women, or anything like that. They'll just, they're just like very determinedly go after this, this idea of like men have all the bountiful privileges given to them, when in truth that's not really the case. There are pluses and minuses to being either gender, and you're not going to find a gender which has all of the positives and none of the negatives of the other, because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I always used to think that there was gonna be that moment where people were just going to, the aha moment where people would we're going to get it, but it just sometimes just feels hopeless. It just feels like we're talking to nothing, and all feminists have to do is make up whatever lie or whatever lingo they want to, and they're just instantly supported for it, and they get instant acceptance for it, unquestioning acceptance for it. It's absurd.
This is something we've broached before. Manufactured studies and so on. You look into them and they fall apart very quickly, and you realize just how one-sided they are. Now, there are some good ones. I will say that there are some good feminist studies that actually look at both sides and actually like address problems, but quite often, if not most often, you get the sort of CDC study where you have made to penetrate sectioned off into another little category which doesn't count as rape, so that they can say that the majority of all rapes happen to women, and that men have almost no rapes committed against them. It's just like they use that sort of bureaucracy, so they don't even have to really like mangle the numbers. They just have to redefine words, and that's really what they like doing the most. If you redefine a word, you can change its meaning completely, and you can make it say whatever you want.
I mean,
Well, and I think one thing
another.
sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll say my
No,
thought
go
after
ahead.
Alpha.
You'll probably say. Um,
Okay, well, what I was gonna say is, I think another thing is like the idea of personal language and making things subjective, so that they can become chameleons to every argument, so that way, anytime something is brought up, they can just change their stance, and all of a sudden they have the perfect counter. How convenient. I definitely see that a lot where, you know, they play every side and play none at the same time. You know what I mean? So, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of them will say, "Oh, well, we support men too." Like, okay, you do in debates sometimes. I mean, you mention them, but do you actually support them? No. You just change your argument to suit that narrative when it's convenient, right? They
Sums
just
up perfectly.
Yeah, they just throw everything under feminism that is like beneficial, right? Because the word doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a label that they use to mean whatever's convenient when they're making their argument.
Now, I'd be interested to see that post on the false flag attacks, Blue, because I've been aware of them doing it for some time. What they often do is they go into an old post that's a couple of months old, and then they post something atrocious in there that we'd never say, and then they report the post. Sometimes they get like bots and things to upvote it, but they report the post, they screenshot it, they put it on other subs, feminist subs, in order to get people to report it more. And they'll go, oh, look at these awful MRAs and stuff like that. And it'll be a post with like no upvotes at all, or maybe even downvotes. And they'll just, they'll use that as typical for us, but like the admins might listen to that. It's very, very hard to see if the admins have cottoned on to this sort of thing, and we do have to be very careful, and we have to worry a lot, because we have just seen a fairly major MRA sub that did a lot of activism taken down. I don't honestly know what for. I don't think they know either, but it's worth. It's really worth. I mean, good modders have said before that they toe the rules very, very tightly. So hopefully we are okay. Oh, we've been okay for a long time, but it'll only take like one admin to just nuke the whole thing.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened already, to be honest, and I'm just waiting for the day.
I'm eternally shocked that it's still up. We really should establish a safe haven for it. We've been talking about it for ages, and we were going to do it. In fact, our website is a staging ground, just in case the Reddit sub gets taken down. But we haven't fulfilled our pledge to set up some sort of alternate system on there, which we really should.
Yeah. At least we got the post.
It's more difficult than it sounds, in case anyone's wondering why we haven't.
Worthwhile things usually are.
Yeah. There are some Reddit clones, but often they are basically things you instance on somebody else's website. So it can be very difficult to get hold of the name, the specific name, and the specific stuff on there. And then even if you do that, you're on a website which is often very, very full of Nazis. And I don't mean that figuratively, I mean that very literally. That's honestly not what we want. So we want something that will be able to, we can install on our own website, but getting something like that is insanely difficult if you want something good and that's going to have continuing support. Anyway, we've gone completely off topic here. Does anyone else have anything to say about big?
Really though?
Yeah, we haven't really gone
I
off
mean,
topic, because Big Tent feminism
there-
isn't real. It's not a real thing. It doesn't actually exist. So, how do you go off a non-existent topic?
I mean, another thing is too, they haven't really gone off topic, because if you think about it, if big tent feminism somehow came through, they finally have to address the fact that they claim that they accept everyone of every gender, and actually have to give men their own spaces.
Yeah, so technically, anything is on topic when you're talking about big tech feminism. It's like the ultimate ambiguity. It's nothing and everything at the same time, which X, you said very well. They play all sides and no sides, which is contrast to the men's rights movement, which is always very specific. To me, if one side is never specific and is unable to even provide a specific definition, and the other side is nothing but specific almost every single time, it's very telling.
Yeah, it is very much like patriarchy theory and things like that. Nobody can give me a straight answer on what that is. Toxic masculinity, nobody really knows what that is. Like they'll talk about dude bro culture and stuff, but it's like, okay, that's like one stereotype you've brought up. Have you got anything more concrete? And it's like, what about the really nice dude bros? It's like you're really stereotyping this. Like this is like back when they stereotyped the hippies and before them the beatniks. It's like, yeah, you're picking on this one subculture group. So what have you got that's like a list of traits? And they'll go, okay, here's some traits, but they don't agree on the traits. And they'll say things like competitive, which is a positive trait. They'll say things like success driven, which can be taken to extremes, but that's just workaholism. It's it is extremely nebulous what it is. Yeah, Darkish is right. They're supposed to be against stereotypes. At the same time, they are the motherload of stereotypes. There is no group that I have ever run into that loves its stereotypes more than feminism does.
How is toxic masculinity and patriarchy not stereotypes?
Well, of course they are. I mean, patriarchy stereotypes men as oppressive. I mean, it's so infected with Marxist class theory that it can't possibly avoid being like stereotyping because they're collectivists. Like they're so intent on collectivist ideas that they just can't get around it. And when you make collectivist ideas a part of your groupthink, you end up with an awful lot of stereotypes, especially when you take something that was originally just aimed at like one class of people and then expand it to literally everyone. Like this is why you have Spider-Man comics coming out now, and like Marvel comics generally, actually, where you've got racist stereotypes, you've got sexist stereotypes being portrayed in the name of equality. And this is why the woke side has such a reputation for being racist and sexist, like just incredibly so. But feel free to keep talking. Like we can't really have any dead air here. It's very bad to have dead air on stream.
Yeah, you don't have to ask permission to speak. So, Acid, if you want to go, feel free to go.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's good. I looked up the definition of big tent, and it basically means permitting or encouraging a broad spectrum of views. And I honestly don't think feminism is a big tent from my personal experiences. I mean, like, I'm a trans man. I don't sound like one sad time, but I've come across my fair share of TERFs, and some of them say that they accept me into their feminism because, like, I'm a biological woman or whatever. Others think I'm a traitor or a damsel in distress or something. And then when they find out I'm an MRA, they literally freak out. And then this is where they actually get like united too. It's really weird. And they tell me I need to go see a therapist or something because I'm quote unquote an MRA and a biological female. Like, okay, chill. And other feminists will attack me because I transitioned to male. They want to attack trans women and non-binary for the same thing, even though some feminists are actually pretty chill about me being like, I'm just transitioning to male. And then you go into the whole feminist argument of, but those groups of feminists are not real feminists because they do not agree with me, and it just delves even farther into it, and that's basically all I had to say right now. So yeah.
Can I ask you, so you have openly told self-identifying feminists that you identify as an MRA,
Yes.
and you have gotten some relatively positive reactions.
A couple.
Couple, and obviously a lot of negative reactions.
Pro MRA feminists, the anti MRA feminists get really mad at me, and a lot of them will say LGBT MRAs don't exist, and I'm like, let me present you with all of them.
Yeah, let me present you with me, literally standing here in front of you.
Yeah, and they're like, you're just an exception. You just hate other LGBT people. I don't know why I clapped. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really need to ask about what the negative reactions are because I already know what they are. But I'm curious if you don't mind sharing what some of the positive reactions were from the pro MRA feminists.
Mainly just them also saying that men's issues exist, and like one of them, I think her name was Michelle, and I think she was on Quora, if that's how you pronounce the website. And basically she was just actually created a whole space for both MRAs, not both, technically, since there's three, MRAs, egalitarians, and feminists to all talk about. She was pretty chill. And my mom identifies as a feminist, but she's mostly pro MRA. And I think I met one more person, but I can't remember, and that's about it.
Okay, and can I ask, are you in college right now?
No. Though I'm
Okay,
planning on going very, very soon.
okay. So did you recently finish high school?
Yeah, last year.
Okay, so what would you describe the environment when it comes to all this stuff there? Like, how did most kids think about it or talk about it, or was there any MRA presence or awareness or discussions of any kind?
Okay, so I went to two high schools because I actually had to go to an alternative school because honestly, the school felt too slow for me and I didn't get any work done, but the alternative school I did. So I'm just gonna jump to the alternative school real quick because I remember a couple of the reactions right off of the bat there, and then there's a whole big one at the other school, so I'm gonna get into that one afterwards. But the first one that came to mind was you know what a gay straight alliance is, right? Or like a gender sexuality alliance, whichever one you want to call it.
Yeah, they're like the clubs with it. They have like little events and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Yeah.
Both of my schools had them, but I only went to the alternative schools one. And there was a lot of kids there actually, but there was actually plenty of LGBT kids in the school, and most of them didn't even go there, but a huge chunk did, and I was a regular there. Um, so one of them, he was a gay dude, and he got introduced to me by gay trans friend, which was the other gay trans dude there, which was actually pretty lit because we agreed on a lot of things, including on how like trans men had issues and stuff and what kind of issues, and we would talk about that kind of stuff. Anyway, so he introduced his gay friend to me, and I said, "Hi, I'm Drew, I'm an MRA," and he literally looked at me weirdly and suddenly stopped refusing to even shake my hand at all, and I was like, I didn't even notice it at first, but then I didn't care overall, but like, I noticed it later and I was like, huh. Um, most of the time they are pretty chill, and I actually managed to get this one guy, because in one of the meetings, there was this one, like, Christian white straight dude who was not trans, who decided to be like talking about all the feminist talking points, and then I brought up my own points as like an MRA and stuff, and then after I was done he started talking about all the stuff he felt as one, and he actually thanked me, and he's like, thank you for like opening up about that, because now I feel like I can open up about it, because the other people there were like actually like not caring very much. Like that school was actually, like, I should say the students, at least the teachers, some of the teachers were not exactly friendly, and like, okay, one of them literally told me I could not put men's rights at all in any of my assignments, or he would not like grade them at all because of that, and I've actually been downgraded for my assignments for including any sorts of men's rights in it. Besides one teacher, she was pretty lit, she was a summer school one, and she actually gave me 100% on my assignment for like history and culture, and my brain just died. Okay, and she treated me the same afterwards. And
Well, I would. So okay, I would not have reacted well to being told that I can't put men's rights on any of my schoolwork. I wasn't really that much into the men's rights movement in high school, and I went to a high school that was pretty not political. No one really talked about anything or cared, so it never would have come up. But man, did you did you try?
Acid, did you do anything?
Yeah, did you? How did you
Did
react?
you go to someone about this?
I went to the teacher directly and I told him I was pissed because, like, I'm autistic, okay, and men's rights is one of my special interests, and apparently I've actually learned, and I mean it actually correlates with me, you do not try to force somebody that's autistic to give up their special interest. That's not how you bond with them, okay? So I was not very happy at all, and I would argue with him about it a lot. But when I brought up parental alienation, he actually brought about how his own mom did that to him, and then how he became close to his dad after finding out the truth, and he's not close to his mom. So there's that at least. But yeah, I was not happy, and I actually argued with several of the teachers over things. And when the whole Johnny Depp case happened, because that was happening during the school year, and basically almost all of the students were for him, and we actually watched the trial as it was getting like announced when he won. It was pretty lit. Me and my classmates were watching it. Our teacher was just kind of like, "Oh, they're both bad," but the rest of us classmates were just like, "No, he's the good guy," basically. A little more like complicated than that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well, let me just. It's interesting because this happens all the time, especially in the Ask Men subreddit, and then obviously in the Men's Lib subreddit. Your teacher, who was very anti-MRA, he himself experienced a men's issue, and yet it's the label of MRA that he was so against. And I find all the time I see a highly upvoted comment saying, "Oh, it's so unfair how this happens to men. Oh, it's so unfair how this man's issue is ignored. Too bad the only people that talk about." But I'm not one of those misogynistic red pill MRA incels though. And
I
it's
don't think
like,
he was that far, but he was on that side of the spectrum, definitely.
and it's just like, how are you not connecting the dots? It's like, if you acknowledge that the things MRAs say are true, maybe MRAs aren't misogynistic incels. Maybe we're just saying things that are true. I mean, but this is the country that's going to bring you Trump versus Biden 2.0, so I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So did you go to a
Oh, sorry.
public school or a private school?
The alternative school, you had to send a letter in or whatever. You had to go on this forum on this website, and I thought everyone got picked, and I got picked, and I was like, lit. But apparently it was actually very hard to get into, so I don't know how I got in there, but I guess my mom editing the like forum for me helped. The other school was public. We could never afford a private school now. But I think I should go into the public school now though, because it was definitely worse. Because like they actually had this like women's march on March 8th every year, which was not bad, okay? But they didn't do anything for International Men's Day even after I told them. And I tried to tell them again later, and the new principal was a bit more listening towards it. I was at the alternative school at the time, so I think he's possibly getting something done this year, but I'm not 100% sure. It depends on whether he remembered it or not. My voice is going bad right now. But okay, so this
It's
one
okay.
time, what?
I just said it's okay.
Okay. This one time I was in history class, and I think oh wait, give me a second. This was after the pandemic, and we actually went back into school because I had Mr. Mace as a teacher for before. So Mr. Brown, that's all I'm gonna call him. He was my teacher this year, and there's this one student teacher that's there to help like specific students because we have that at that kind of school. And our school was kind of known as the special ed school for some reason, but at least we weren't known as the druggy school. But whatever. So my brain just died again. Give me one moment. Okay, so in the class, before we got there, because we started with Zoom meetings before we went into actual like classrooms, I got into an argument because we were having films played, and most of them were pretty chill. Like there's the civil rights one, you know, the average ones, but then there was the feminist one, and the way that they portrayed it was literally as just like men were these like oppressive pigs that would literally just sit around all day while the women like cleaned the house and took care of the children. And I pointed out the men were working out, like in their jobs and stuff, not necessarily like working out, but you know what I mean. And all this stuff, and I mean, I probably got a little mad, and I just said like they just had to make sure that the children didn't cook themselves in the oven and stuff like that. And I don't know, but I probably still would say that to them. Not gonna lie, but and they got really mad at me, and they got overly mad at me, and the teacher argued with me. They're like, the lady for the one student there got mad at me. I think 3 girls got mad at me, and one of the guys in the chat stayed silent, but he was liking their comments, and I noticed it, and I was like, huh, I used to have a crush on you. So yeah, no, didn't end up good. And no, and we got into a whole bunch of arguments about that, but after we went into the classrooms again, the majority of them actually shut up. It was pretty interesting. I was the only one who was still talking the same amount, and I would see those same people in the classroom, and I'd be like, not talking now, huh, in my head. Like, people behind the anonymity of the screen, even when people know who you are, they tend to just, like, spew everything they can. Like, they, like, have a very bad virus, and they're throwing up onto their screen. And, so yeah, it's kind of weird, but, I actually, in another part of the class, my brain just died again. It does that a lot. So, we were learning more about it, I think. I can't remember it at the moment. I'll go to another class. It was freshman year this time. And, what's actually cool about this class was the healthcare class is that it actually showed that, like, girls could, like, sexually violate boys, and that it was a bad thing, and that you should try to get help if it happens. But that was about the only good thing about the class, because the only domestic abuse that they showed against men was one video, and it was, like, a male perpetrator, and I pointed out that, like, domestic violence against men is just as common, and it's, like, 50%, at least. The teacher's like, I haven't found any statistics on that. I'm like, have you not done any research? And I showed her at least one statistic, and she's like, I don't believe that, it's just a billboard. And I was like, oh my god. But, and the class was mainly, like, most of the health classes have basically just done most of the domestic violence against women. Like, in the alternative school, this part was actually bad. When I had to, like, re-earn the credits or whatever, because I didn't have very much, one of the parts were relationships, and all of the domestic violence being portrayed was against women. Though, the resources they supplied, at least one was just for women, and the rest, I think, were open for men, but I think there was only 3 or 4 resources. And, I'm pretty sure the one for women was not open for LGBT either, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't take my word on that. But, yeah. And, oh yeah, this reminds me of another thing when I was younger and I was identifying as, like, and presenting as a girl. So, I'm pretty sure I already told Ma this a while ago, if he'll remember, but, I was in, like, I think the 8th grade. And, this was middle school, by the way. Yeah, it was 8th grade. And, I was messing with my friend. I was pulling stuff off his desk, and he would look at me and see the stuff and laugh, and I'd give it to him back, and we were just messing around. And I got, a little carried away, and I dragged his desk, and his desk was so loud. I was not prepared for that. And, everyone in the class was silent, and the teacher instantly looked at him and blamed him and was like, you get detention. And, He was like, "You never believe me." And seeing what happened, I was like, "No, it was me." And she looked at me for several seconds like she did not believe me, and then was like, "Move over a seat." And I later realized that she gave me a lesser punishment than she did him. She instantly gave him like detention because she thought he was the one who did it instantly when it was just me. And like I don't know why she instantly jumped to him. I feel really bad for him. I haven't talked to him in a while though. He was a pretty lit friend. But yeah, she just had me move over a seat. And I mean, I was given detention once, but like the teacher didn't even actually check to make sure that I actually went in detention. And she made sure of that for like the other kids which were just basically boys. So yeah. I think it was either 7th or 8th grade math. Yeah. There's probably more, but I'm not remembering it at the moment. Oh wait, I do remember one. This was elementary school. I'm going back in time. There was this one girl who was arguing with a boy, and she was telling him that boys could only hit back on the third hit that a girl hits him. And I came over and I told her that no, guys get to hit back on the first hit. And she looked at me like I was ruining something, which was pretty great. So yeah, that's all I can remember at the moment.
Well, I have to say, you have a lot to say. Would you be interested in doing an interview on my YouTube channel at some point?
Sure.
Okay, very cool. There's a long line of people I get to, so it may not be right away, but
It's fine.
sure. Well,
I should live several years at least.
you should actually because how often I'm not sure I've actually heard you speak at one of these events before. I know we've been doing them for a couple years, so I apologize if I forgot, but
Oh,
have you?
so, sorry. I actually got Discord a while ago, and I was planning on using it, but, my mom's fiance did not allow me to, like, use it for a while, so I was technically using it at the public library for the time that I actually did sign up, and I actually just moved, like, last week, or 2 weeks ago, and something bad happened yesterday, but I'm not gonna go into that. And, yeah, I finally get to use it, so this is the first time I'm on this chat. And I plan on hanging out every single day that happens.
Well, you are an absolutely superb speaker. You're very, very good when you talk about this stuff. Very good, actually. So I hope we hear more from you. So I just want to make sure that I have it. By the way, because I've never heard you speak, I always thought that you were Katrina's alt account because my brain was seeing your name as Katrina somehow. But okay, so I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I have this right. So you, and I don't mean offense if I messed anything up. So you were assigned female at birth, and you are now transitioning to male.
Yes.
Okay, and you're around 18, 19 years old?
18.
Okay, and you're planning on going to university soon?
Yes.
Okay, and how long have you openly identified as MRA?
Since I was like, well, technically not since I was 8, but I started being one since I was 8.
Wow.
I mean, I actually tried to look up the term, but I thought it was masculinist because, you know, like feminist, and I was like correlating because that's how I found the word misandry.
Well, yeah,
Because my teacher said
10 years ago,
misogyny was a word, and I was like, okay.
10 years ago, 2012, if you Googled it, yeah, you probably would have gotten masculinist. But 8 years old, why? How so? If you don't mind me asking, if any of this is uncomfortable, then by all means, feel free not to answer. But 8 is the youngest answer I've ever heard.
So it started because, like I said earlier, my mom is pro MRA, and she's a bit like actually supports men's rights issues, and like she was the one who taught me that men can hit back on the first hit and stuff. And it just kind of stuck with me since then, and that's how I started getting into it. And I started researching, and like I someone else noted to me a while ago, I'm a kid of the computer age, brain fart. So yeah. It just went very far from there, and I think I might have been like 12 when I actually found out what an MRA was, but I came across plenty of statistics before then. And then, like, I actually started identifying as trans when I was 14, so I started identifying as an MRA before then.
Okay, very cool. Well, I gotta say,
We should probably save this for the interview because we've gone well off topic. Like we're off in the weeds now. But
That's it, though. Please know that what you're doing is fantastic, and we're very proud of
yeah,
you.
it is
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
let me ask you, when you go to college, do you plan on being, this open about it?
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be a blood spatter analyst when I go to college, so I don't think they're gonna care that much, to be honest. I mean, I don't know enough about them to actually like determine whether they care. I just know enough about the profession, and I think it's really cool. So yeah,
You'll
and I
be
also
you'll
want to
be
be a researcher.
yeah, blood splatter analysis. You'll be probably around law enforcement minded types.
Yeah.
Who I don't know if law enforcement is in particular pro MRA, but I certainly don't think that they're particularly pro feminist. So I don't think it should be much of a problem.
I don't know. Some of them are a bit more feminist, especially from some of the statistics they put out. Like, there's this one video that I watched where it talked about like both statistics against like of domestic violence against men and women, even though it downplayed the male ones. And the cop was like, "Oh, just talking about the female domestic violence." But yeah, some of them definitely are. But I've met some that are actually pretty chill. So yeah.
That's usually the case. You have your many varieties.
Hmm. My mom got annoyed at the people in the criminal justice thing when she was trying to do it, like I think a couple of years ago, because she was trying to go through college because she wanted to do forensic science, and she thought they were like too up and mighty or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just that group.
It's an interesting field nonetheless, though, regardless of people's attitudes in the field.
Yeah.
And you said you experienced all this in high school, though, right?
Yeah.
Do you know exactly, and while this is leaned back to the topic, do you know exactly what kind of feminist they identified as in your high school? Or was it general?
Okay, I just remembered another part too, but the feminist part, um, both the high schools definitely would have been like pro LGBT, mainly anti male, I guess somewhat anti-white, depending on some of them. Kind of feminists. Not all of them are that way, but the majority. Sorry. And the other thing that I remembered was one time I was at like lunchtime or whatever, and I was outside with a couple of my like female friends. When I say couple, I mean 3, by the way. Um and one of them randomly asked me, because this was the original high school. I think this was not sophomore year, senior year. And she asked me randomly, "Are you still a misogynist, Drew?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And she's like, "You said you didn't believe in the gender pay gap," and I was like, "I don't." And she continued to call me a misogynist and would not listen to any of the like male issues I would say at all, or any of the things that happened to me that I brought up. And only like one of them would actually listen, and she said like, because she's identified as non-binary, but she's mainly a girl. And she's talked about how she actually has been like seen as both a guy and a girl before, so she understands and has had both kinds of experiences, but the other two would not listen to me at all, and they were definitely like very, very feminist.
Yeah, sounds like they're pretty tyrannical in their mindset, which is a
Yeah.
clear indication that they don't really believe what they're saying. If you have to shut people down to cause them to agree with you and like bully them into it, then it's, I mean, that's Maloo control, which is Blue Orange's favorite phrase. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about destroying people who disagree so that everyone else steps in line.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, we should probably take this out. So,
Alright, I'm muting myself now.
it's all right. You can talk more in a minute if you want. But Dark, if you could take us out.
Of course. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this week's Saturday live stream. We are here every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time. We always love hearing what you guys have to say. This is, of course, the Men Human Rights Discord server. We are the semi-official Discord of the Men Human Rights subreddit. If you ever have a topic you want to recommend, you can message Blue, you can message Ma, or you can message myself. We would love to put your topics up and be able to speak about them. Until next week, see you all.